Okay, so motor learning. Today we are going to see motor learning and the stages of motor learning. Motor learning is defined as a set of processes associated with practice and experience that will lead to relatively permanent change in a skilled behavior. Structural changes occurs in the central nervous system, but that are not directly observable. Learning can be seen in observed changes in behavior such as alteration in the amount of time and the efforts required. So effort and time decreases, improvement in coordination, improvement in speed, and retention of task ability over the period of time. Performance is not really a good measure for the amount of motor learning because performance can be affected by fatigue and a poor motivation level. Now, learning should be viewed as a permanent event at the level of hierarchical, spatial, and temporal organizations in the central nervous system. Motor learning can be direct result of practice and experience, and then it is highly dependent on the sensory information and feedback processes. One of my professors said during my college time that our brain don't learn the movement, rather than our brain learns the sensation of the movement. Where patient focuses more on a visual information during the early phases of motor learning, and patient focuses more on proprioceptive information in the later stages of motor learning. Fitts and Posner gave relatively a good model for motor learning in three different stages of motor learning. Name as a cognitive phase of motor learning or an early phase of motor learning. Second is an associative phase or an intermediate level of motor learning, and third is autonomous or the final stage of motor learning. We'll see what's that. So cognitive or early phase of motor learning, it's the first step is understanding of the task. Patient understands what is required. The understanding by means of cognitive map and cognitive plan in the central nervous system. Second, knows the task demands, what it's required. In that, large amount of cortical input is required. Third, assesses the abilities by trial and error method. What's the abilities? What a patient can do. Fourth, develop strategies. What you gonna do? Which information you gonna select? Which information you gonna discard? Successive approximation of a task. That's number 5. So you put the task in a numerical order. Okay. Movement 1, after movement 2, after movement 3. 6, involves a stimulus selection. As I said, earlier phases you focus more on a visual information, and in later stages you focus more on a proprioceptive information. Perceptual motor organization in the central nervous system. Then develop a motor program. Ideal performance of a speed. So stress slow controlled movements and provide a movement cues to the patient what you have to do. Break complex tasks into small component parts for a better learning. Structure environment for development of a close skill where there are less distractions. Reinforcement of a correct performance. If a patient performs one task correctly, reinforce that. Avoid verbal bombardment. Don't bombard too much. This is wrong. No. Learning can be observed during this phase as a patient learns a new task. Progress from visually guided movements to proprioceptive guided movements. Now, we'll come to the second stage. That is associative or intermediate phase. Associative phase is refinement of motor program is achieved through practice. Spatial and temporal organization becomes more organized. Patient progresses from what to do to how to do the movement. Proprioceptive cues increases, give a more proprioceptive feedback to the patient. Extraneous movement error becomes less and less, decreases. A physical therapist should only intervene if a particular movement is consistently wrong. Give a feedback to the patient, both knowledge of result and knowledge of performance. Gradually progresses the patient to the open environment or a changing environment. Now we'll see the final stage or autonomous or a final stage of motor learning, where practice is the final refinement of the special aspects of the movement. Spatial and temporal components become highly organized and movement become autonomous. If I want to give you an example, a patient brushes the teeth, or a normal individual brushes the teeth or take a shower. So You don't have to think how you're going to move your toothbrush, or if you take a shower, you don't have to think whether I'm going to wash my arm first or my leg first. Control is shifted from the higher centers to the lower centers. So normal individual can plan all the day ahead movements in their shower. Stress of refinement of skills and consistency of performance, this is required. Provide distractions to the patient and move the performance in an open and a changing environments. Thank you so much.